is Laura, and I have the pleasure of leading the Plastics Initiative here at Oceanwise, where we are focused on the radical reduction of plastic pollution. If I may, as I've mentioned, I would like to start with a land acknowledgement. I'm coming to you from North Vancouver, which is the traditional, ancestral and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh and the Musqueam nations. As we are coming together from across the country and indeed beyond, I would like to take a moment just to recognise that Canada is a historic gathering place for many First Nations and is home to a diverse body of Indigenous communities and settlers. And it is with respect that I would like to take the time to recognise the links between the past, present and future, and draw attention to the continuing relationships between these people and what we can continue to learn from each other. For me, that's especially important in relation to plastic because, as I will chat to you a little bit later, it is a new problem. And especially when we think about the relationship between the past and the present, it is critical. Our grandparents survived without this magical material. So, I'm chatting to you about Oceans Week Canada. What does that mean? Well, Oceans Week Canada is celebrated between June 3rd, which is today, and the 12th of June. It's an annual national celebration of oceans events, learning and engagement, held in the run-up to and in celebration of UN Oceans Day, which is June 8th, which is a dedicated day set aside for humanity to celebrate our oceans. So, what are we going to chat about today? We would love to take the opportunity, and I'm going to introduce you to our super CEO, Lasse, and he's going to share with you more about Oceanwise itself and our Oceanwise shoreline cleanup. I'm going to then take the reins again, apologies in advance for hearing so much of my voice, and we'll chat a little bit about why plastics are problematic and hope to equip you with some steps that you can take today and as part of Oceans Week to reduce your plastic pollution. We'll show you just how easy it is to lead your very own shoreline cleanup. And we'll work together and we'll invite a colleague called Tessa from Yulu to work and talk you through how to amplify your impact by sharing your cleanup across social media and through traditional media channels. And last but not least, we're here today to answer your questions. So we'll wrap up and please feel free to ask us anything that's Oceanwise or plastic related. So, to get us started, it is my pleasure to introduce Lasse Gustavsson, our President and CEO of Oceanwise.
Thanks, Laura, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. Oceanwise is a globally focused conservation organization, and we're on a mission to protect and restore the world's ocean. Through research, education, direct action conservation, and field projects, we empower communities to take actions for ocean health. We are focused on tackling three major ocean challenges: overfishing, ocean pollution, and climate change. Oceanwise is headquartered in Vancouver, British Columbia, Western Canada. We have staff across Canada, but also in Mexico and in Chile in South America. The participants in our programs comes from all over the world. So if you haven't joined us from Canada today, but another place in the world, so you're more than welcome. Our solutions, because we are solutions-based organizations, are knowledge-based. We have a team of scientists and researchers. They are working really hard to find solutions that can be implemented on a scale that matches the major challenges that we are facing as ocean conservationists. We are also working in close partnerships with Indigenous groups, and we benefit from their traditional knowledge as well. It's obvious for us that you need the knowledge to understand what the solution is going to be like. But knowledge alone will not drive change, and that's why we are mobilizing, inspiring, and educating millions of people around the world to take action for the ocean. I'm Swedish, and in my capital, this week, the United Nations is hosting what they call Stockholm Plus 50. It's a 50-year anniversary of their first United Nations Environmental Conference. So we've been talking for 50 years, and we made some progress, but clearly not enough. And the most important ingredients that we need to add to the game today is action. Small actions, big actions, meaningful actions that actually interfere in nature in a positive way. Oceanwise is doing two things. We are influencing decision makers as experts. One example of that would be the Canadian single-use plastics ban is being informed by some of the research, not only of course, but some of the research that Oceanwise have done. We also inspire and empower people by turning knowledge of the ocean into action for the ocean. And addressing plastic pollution in our oceans is critical to ensure healthy and flourishing oceans. You know that, that's why you are here. What we do at Oceanwise is we address chemical pollutants, and especially chemical pollutants that have an effect on whales. We do groundbreaking microfiber pollution research in collaboration with some of the world's leading apparel industries, the Patagonias, the Arc'teryx, the Aritzas of the world. We run plastic reduction programs. And of course, the topic of today is our successful shoreline cleanup program. We've been leading shoreline cleanups for over 25 years. And just last year, we organized almost 2,000 cleanups in Canada alone. We also launched our first cleanups in the US, in Texas and California. And shoreline cleanups are important for many reasons. For me, the three most important reasons to do a shoreline cleanup is one, you want to clean up your beach. That's what's driving most of our participants. And that's really, really important because I live 3 blocks from the beach. When I go down there and I find plastic pollutions, cigarette butts, it's not a great experience. So clean beaches is really important for us, of course, and for you. But we do more than that. We also collect the data. We try to understand what's on our beaches, where does it come from, who is responsible, what can we do? And we use that information to influence decision makers, whether they are municipalities or corporates or citizens. And cigarette butts in particular, you can't blame on anybody else, but that's littering. That's people not doing the right thing. Plastic containers for your food, which is all over the beaches, that's something that you need to share the responsibilities with the people you buy your food from. There are better solutions than plastic containers. The third thing the shoreline cleanups are doing, and maybe that's even the most important one, is building community. When you participate in a cleanup, you have a good chance of making new friends. And it's only when we come together as communities that we will be able to drive the deep change that is needed for the oceans. So clean the shoreline, collect the data, make friends. That's the purpose of the shoreline cleanups. So thanks so much for joining us today. I personally look forward to a summer full of fun and fulfilling cleanups with you. Thanks again. Back to you, Laura.
Thank you so much. So I now have the task of introducing the problem or talking a little bit more about why plastic is a problem. Why should we care? And I'm going to try my best not to depress you too much. So plastic pollution has negative consequences for marine life, human health, and the economy. Believe it or not, researchers have found plastic pollution everywhere they've looked, from the very bottom of the ocean floor to the top of Mount Everest. What's worse is more than 800 species are already known to be negatively affected, so negatively suffering the consequences of our plastic pollution from land. And this includes all sea turtle species, more than 40% of cetacean species, like this beautiful whale here, and 40% of marine birds. You'll have probably seen these very sad pictures before, but the reason I show them to you is to remind you that plastic pollution presents a clear threat to life. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen here that entanglement is one of the most visible problems. It's one of the easiest ones for me to go and show you pictures of. And they cause wounds, they cause drowning. You saw the turtle trapped in the six-pack ring, and here a baby sea lion caught up in ghost gear. But it is not just entanglement. Ingestion is a huge problem when it comes to plastics. So as you might know, plastics degrade over time, which means they fragment into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces, making them easier and easier to be digested. Once ingested, whether it's by the smallest creatures, so the zooplankton, all the way up to whales, what we do know is it's been shown to reduce growth rates, limit reproduction, cause starvation, and ultimately radically reduce survival rates across a wide range of organisms. But this plastic Pollution is not just directly harming animals, it's also actively contributing to the suffocation of coral reefs and reducing our resilience to climate change. So you've probably heard before that our oceans are responsible for every sort of second or third breath that we take. 70% of the oxygen we breathe is produced by marine photosynthesis. So that's things like phytoplankton and seaweeds. And yet we know, researchers have shown us that plastic pollution is interfering with one of the most abundant and photosynthetic bacteria in the ocean called Plechococcus. So it is limiting the ocean's ability to be able to provide us the air to breathe. And last but not least, you might say the elephant in the room is human health. We don't yet know what the implications are for ourselves, but we do know, and the science is showing us, that we're finding microplastics even in our bloodstream. It's in our drinking water, it's in our food, and in your lungs, even recently being found in a human placenta. And yet we know all this, and the problem grows. We are still on an exponential growth curve. This graph, I don't know about you, is really depressing for me because we know it's a problem. I hope you'll agree from the pictures that I just shared. We can see the damage it's doing, and yet global plastic production is still on track to more than double by 2024. You get estimates of over 13 million tons of plastic being leaked from land out into the ocean. So what is driving this, like exponential growth? Real talk, the problem is us. Plastic is a useful material. It has a handful of really unique properties. We know it's cheap. We know it's lightweight. So when you want to reduce your carbon emissions, it's an easy go-to. And we know it's durable. It withstands a wide variety of temperatures. But you know what? We use plastic without thinking. We accept it as a default and we just don't value it. So when you use it, we're content to throw it away. How many of us really understand what away means, what it means to put it in our recycling bins? And ultimately, what that means in effect is that we are not investing in keeping this material in the circular economy. We do not have the systems in place today to manage all the different types of polymers and plastics that we're producing in those different formats. Now, I don't know about you, but I've heard before that actually Canada's not that bad, is it? I get that question quite a lot. Believe it or not, in Canada, only 9% of plastic that we use is recycled. Can you believe it? And why? Cheap, and it means it's of little value. So it actually is easier, cheaper, sometimes better as far as industry is concerned, to throw it away, to burn it, to put it in landfill. We have poor infrastructure and we have those hundreds of thousands of different formulations that I talked about, which makes it very, very difficult for us to manage this problem. And please don't forget, both here in North America, so Canada and the US, we top the charts when it comes to plastic consumption per capita. We are still pretty much up there as one of the worst countries in the world. And yet we have little or no understanding of what happens to this plastic. So where's it all coming from? Believe it or not, 80% of plastic pollution is estimated to come from land. So that's stuff that we're using every day. It's stuff from industry. And the reality is that 40% of plastic produced today is made for packaging and for other single-use products that we find on our shorelines all the time. And of the plastic that we're finding in the ocean, of the plastic that we're finding on our shorelines, 85% just comes in 5 different formats. That's things like films, carrier bags, bottles, and other household goods. And we've had a chat today about toothpaste already, and that's definitely one of my sins. But a sneaky one on the side is 14% of plastic produced is for the textile industry. Now, this one I think is surprising, but please, again, remember, as Oceanwise look very closely at microplastics is because of microfiber shedding. Every time we put our clothes in our home laundry, microfibers are being shed and being washed out and into our wastewater treatment. And if they're not captured, out into our oceans. So what can we do? We have to stop and think. We have to focus on reinvention, on radically reducing the plastic that we're using every day. We have to say no and refuse it. And then we have to think about recycling. Recycling cannot come first. We cannot wait for this. But the good news is, I promise, there's some good news. If we act now, if we take the actions that we're going to talk about today, marine life can be rebuilt. It is resilient. Ecosystems do want to restore. So, as part of World Oceans Day, as part of Oceans Week Canada, please, please, please join us. Act now and make a difference for your oceans. So some of the things we're going to talk about today, we're going to chat about a shoreline cleanup, and I will leave that to my lovely colleague Amber to talk about next. But the other things that I would encourage you to do, take our plastic challenge. Once you've been out onto the shoreline and you've measured all the trash that you've collected, why not go home? Take a look in your trash bin, take a look in your recycling, and use the same scorecard that we've developed to tell us what is the plastic that you're consuming at home, and then commit to just reducing 1 or 2 items and see how you get on. Behavior change is difficult. We all know when we've started new exercise routines or new diets that it is difficult to make those changes, but it is possible if we tackle 1 or 2 at a time. So work with us, join us. And last but not least, vote with your dollars. Lasse mentioned earlier some of the apparel brands that we work with. We work with some other great companies. Please, please, please vote with your dollars and vote and spend your money with organizations who share your values. And we can talk a little bit more about that later. Now I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Amber before I talk too much, and she will take us through how to lead a shoreline cleanup.
Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate that. I always love hearing all about your lengthy plastic knowledge, and I've heard the presentation a couple of times, but I take away something new every time. So thank you very much. Hello, everyone. As Laura mentioned, my name is Amber Schmucker. I'm the Shoreline Cleanup Specialist at Oceanwise, and today I would like to take you through the steps to lead your very own shoreline cleanup. So to make things a little easier to digest, because I will be giving you a lot of information today, we've organized the steps of leading your own cleanup into before, during, and after your cleanup, which you'll see in the titles of the slides today, just to give you a little hint of when these steps would be taking place. So let's jump right in to our first step. So the first step in leading your cleanup is to get informed. So it's important to know and be informed about your potential cleanup sites and any municipal guidelines that might be important for your cleanup. And a great place to start to gather this information is on our website. We have a lot of great resources on our website at shorelinecleanup.org, which you can see here on the slide. And these sites that we have on our website, which you'll see on our cleanup map, which is on our website, once you kind of go through, I'll get into the steps in a little bit, but all of these sites on our website are approved by us. So what that means is each site's evaluated, and we work directly with the municipalities to ensure that we have permission to clean the site, that the site is safe and accessible on public property and not interfering with any wildlife or sensitive habitat. And although we do our best to ensure site safety and accessibility during the site approval process, we do still ask that our site coordinators, our people that are leading the cleanups, do connect with the municipality beforehand to get informed, to make sure that the site is still open, that there isn't any additional guidance that they might need or information that they might need on where to leave their trash after they've done their cleanup and it needs to be collected and removed from the area. Or that there's just any general other permissions that are required for that site in particular, because sometimes that is the case as well. Things can change quickly, and it's just always best to double check with the municipality beforehand to ensure that you have a successful cleanup event. So after you've gathered all of that great information, you're feeling good about being armed with the knowledge that you need to get your cleanup going, the next step is to register your cleanup through our website. So this will give you all of the great resources and your event page and all of that amazing stuff that you need to be able to really formalize your cleanup. So the first step in doing that is to create an account with us. So this can, again, I will say website and cleanup quite a few times in this presentation, but the place that you do that, you guessed it, is on our website. Then on our website, under the lead menu, you select what group type you are. So maybe you're someone from a workplace that's arranging workplace cleanup, you're a school group, a youth group, or just somebody in your community that wants to lead a neighborhood cleanup. You can do that all through this page, which will then lead you to one of the most important parts, which is selecting the day and the location of your cleanup event. After you've done that, you will be prompted to modify your cleanup details. This is where you can do things like choose a name for your cleanup group. This can help others to identify your cleanup, or you can just get a little creative and name your group for fun. You can also, at this time, type in any information that's needed for your participants, like where you'll be meeting on site, indicating if participants need to bring their own supplies, and any other important details that cleanup participants might need to know. You can also, during this portion, choose whether you want to have a private or public event. So if your event is private, it's just accessible to people to register that you share the link to. If you make it public, then anyone that is on our website that wants to join a cleanup will be able to join your cleanup, which is a great way to meet new people if that's something you're interested in. You can even, at this time, set some goals for your cleanup. So that might be something like just really simple as cleaning your community. Maybe it is to meet new people, protect wildlife, or there's even a section here where you can create your own goals and share those with your cleanup participants. So now you have all this information loaded and you're ready to share. You want, if it's a public event, you want as many people joining as possible. And again, through our website, shameless plug again, you can share your cleanup with your friends and community through a bar at the bottom of your event page, which has multiple options on sharing your event. Next on the list is to get ready for your big day and come prepared for your cleanup. A great place to start with this is by gathering cleanup supplies that you'll use during your event. This can sometimes take some time depending on how you're going about gathering supplies. So definitely a good thing to consider in advance of your cleanup day. So some supplies that we recommend bringing along with you for users or for participants of your cleanup are things like reusable gloves, reusable bags or buckets, extra data cards for people to use at your event, waivers. There is a digital waiver on our website, but it's good to have backup just in case because everyone needs to sign it. Pens and hand sanitizer. One of the most commonly asked questions we do get is where can I get these supplies? So we generally encourage volunteers to come prepared and bring their own supplies, but you can also reach out to your local municipality and see if they can support with cleanup supplies or reach out to local businesses to ask for donations. As Lasse mentioned, we're a national conservation initiative with over 2,000 cleanups per year. So we encourage, our number one is to encourage people to bring their own reusable items from home when participating in a cleanup to help us reduce the impacts of single-use plastics with the bags and gloves that you would use otherwise. Now that you have all of the equipment aside that is needed for your actual cleanup, it's important to gear up and be prepared yourself. So that's bringing things like personal protective equipment. Maybe you want a mask, a reusable water bottle, and a snack, preferably plastic-free, so we're not contributing to the single-use plastic problem. And then always just making sure that we're prepared for the weather and we're wearing weather-appropriate clothing and wearing lots of sunscreen. I'm sure if I could see you all right now and I asked who's been burnt during a cleanup, I would see a raise of hands. I definitely have, so best to come prepared. And what you can do as a reminder to everyone under additional info on your event page is write exactly this. Remember to bring this item, this item, this item, and this is how we're going to be going about things. And as an aside, in case this kind of is like, whoa, a lot of points, a lot of information, all of this information can be found in our site coordinator guide as well. The last step before your cleanup event day is to make sure you have access to our data card. This is such an important step because it's how you track your litter. It's how you tell us what you found. So Oceanwise shoreline cleanup volunteers track the different types of litter they find on the shoreline by using the data card. The data cards have preset litter categories, so you're not just making them up as you go, which is nice. And they include things such as food containers, cigarette butts, and plastic pieces, some of the common items that we've seen on the shorelines. There are some variability in the common litter items that can be found based on location. So there is also on the data cards a section where items that aren't on the list can be added based on what you find. There are two different data card options. There is our physical data card, which you can download and print from our website and bring with you to tally litter on the day. Or there's my personal favorite, which is the paper-free option, which is your digital data card, which you can use on your mobile device and just click the plus button when you find something. The way that you access this is on the day of your cleanup. You will receive a link to your digital data card, and then you can access it from there. Now that you're fully prepared, you are feeling good, the fun begins. I think you're going to hear the word website cleanup and fun. I forgot to add the fun a couple times during the rest of this presentation. And the fun is going out and doing your actual cleanup. So there are a couple additional steps and things to remember on your cleanup day. Things like first gathering in a group and giving a thank you and safety talk. Safety is of utmost importance during your cleanup event. And we have a lot of pointers on how to lead both of these conversations for your group in our site coordinator guide that can be accessed under cleanup resources on our website. If you have a large group, at this time, you might choose to divide into smaller groups and cover more ground. We recommend having one person per smaller group designated as the data tracker so you can efficiently track as you go along. But most importantly, on your cleanup day, you're going to clean up. You're going to collect litter and you're going to have a lot of fun. Participating in a cleanup is very, very fulfilling. It gives volunteers the opportunity not only to clean up their environment, but it has the added co-benefit of getting out in nature, connecting with friends and colleagues, or even meeting new people if that's something that you're looking to do. And while you're enjoying yourself, another very important step is to take photos and capture the moment. We love receiving pictures from our cleanup participants because they're always smiling, like you can see in the pictures here, even though they're dealing with plastic pollution, which might not be as happy, but they're feeling that community and they're feeling that bond with their friends and colleagues. Once your cleanup is completed, so the actual cleaning of the litter from the area, the next step is to estimate the weight of the litter and recyclables you collected. To do this, we recommend potentially bringing a scale or a 5-pound dumbbell. Oh my goodness, that's a little bit of a tongue twister for comparison. Or play a game of pass the bag and guess the weight. You can gamify this a little bit and make it fun and appealing for people to stay around and do the sorting that's to come. Because the next step is to sort what you find into the different categories. You sort out the recyclables so you can dispose them in the appropriate receptacle if it's available, and then you can dispose the rest of the litter into the appropriate location. And then we want your data, as I think a couple people have mentioned. So one of the last steps is to submit your data and your survey summary. So both of those are found through your account on our website. If you tracked your litter on the mobile app, it's actually really handy, really simple to submit directly from there. If you didn't and you tracked it on the paper copy, you can log into your account and submit your litter data and your follow-up survey in your account. We also collect the survey summary and the info to gather key stats to let us know about how your cleanup went, but also any unusual things that you found. Like you can see on the slide here, that large rope, or we also have people that have found hula hoops and vacuum cleaners and even birthday cake, which I think is a little bit of a waste because I love cake, but that's here nor there. I did mention, or I should have mentioned, that your litter is very, very valuable to us. So I just wanted to break down very briefly what we do with it and why it is so valuable. As you can see from the slide here and has been mentioned, we share this data widely with researchers, policymakers, and industry stakeholders. Lasse shared a couple examples earlier on about the contributions of our data to the Canada Plastics Ban. In 2021, Shoreline Cleanup Citizen data was used to inform the federal government's science assessment of plastic pollution. And in 2021, the Canadian government classified plastic manufactured items as toxic under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act. Even municipalities are using and implementing bylaws with this data to directly respond to the Canada Plastics Ban. So thanks to the dedication of our volunteers coast to coast, we're able to inform these data as well as track 4 of the 6 banned items over the last 5 years, things like plastic bags, straws, 6-pack rings, and cutlery. I just want to draw your attention very briefly, as you can see from this graph on the slide, which is from our data, over the last 2 years of the pandemic, we can see that it's correlated with an increase in single-use plastic. So really, our data presents a very unique opportunity to, one, track the effectiveness of the Canada Plastics Ban, but also there's other endless possibilities. So the very last step in your shoreline cleanup journey, we've made it to the end, is to share your success with us. We want to know how your cleanup went, your experiences, your photos. We always love to hear how it went and how you continue to evolve in your cleanup journey. So to make things easy, I've included our social media tags and some contact information in the slide here. And I will be handing it over to Tessa to learn a little bit more about exactly this. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amber. It's my first time hearing this presentation, so I am learning a ton. And I'm also really grateful to be joining you from the unceded traditional and ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. My name is Tessa, and I am a Senior Account Manager with Yulu Public Relations. What we are a communications, PR, and impact relations agency. And what that means is we support organizations like Oceanwise who have an environmental and/or social change mandate to realize those and maximize the positive change that they're creating. Today, what I'm going to be sharing are a few tips and tricks and best practices for amplifying the impact of your shoreline cleanup through storytelling. So I'll talk a little bit about social media, and then I'll go into some other forms of sharing that we encourage you all to do too. So let's say you've done a cleanup, you have made a big impact in your community to help tackle the issue of trash and litter. It's time to think about storytelling. How can you encourage others to do more? Because ultimately, it's the collective action that's going to maximize the impact of this program. So of course, we can head to social media. A few tips that we suggest is always make sure to include images and especially video to increase views on your content. It's a great opportunity to hashtag shoreline cleanup and to use the handle for the shoreline cleanup. That way other people can view your content too quickly and easily by clicking those hashtags. I would say probably the most important thing is thinking about your narrative. The team at Yulu recently conducted a shoreline cleanup, and one of the wacky things that we found was an acrylic fingernail. So yes, a very interesting talking point, but you know what? When I kind of tested some of my messaging with my family and friends, that was one of the things that they really were quite surprised about and got them interested in learning more. So think about what's kind of surprising, interesting, wacky, and again, don't be afraid to test your messaging out on your family and friends. Other statistics like weight of what you've collected can also be really interesting to folks who are viewing your content too. We definitely recommend posting on multiple channels. Whatever you use is a great platform to share your content on. And a pro tip is that the best time to post is 10 a.m. on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. In terms of engaging with media, we are really spoiled in Canada. We have so many community newspapers that are circulated sometimes daily or weekly where you can share your story with. They're often very, very interested in hyper-local stories from community members just like you. So there's over 950 titles. We suggest engaging your local news outlet And one of the ways that you can do that is by writing a letter to the editor. And on the next slide, I'll give you a couple tips for how to really make sure that your letter stands out. If you don't feel like writing, send a photo. Often outlets are just as interested in pictures as they are in hearing from you in your own words. If there's a group that you belong to that has a newsletter, feel free to reach out to them. They're often always looking for content and will consider your outreach very helpful. And of course, decision makers. We don't want to forget about them. Write a letter, even the letter to the editor that you write, you can repurpose that, send it to local folks who are making decisions in your community. And you can post this on social media as well, particularly Twitter. That's where the decision makers tend to hang out. Tag those who you've addressed it to. And that's always awesome because other folks can see the advocacy that you're taking on and hopefully help support you with the cause as well. Like I mentioned, I promised to share some best practices for storytelling. Make sure that your first sentence is short and interesting, punchy and powerful. Throughout your piece, your writing, your narrative, make sure that you're using accessible words and stay on topic for easy reading. Always ensure to include a call to action. And what's that for this? Well, we want you to participate in a shoreline cleanup. Again, it's that collective action that's going to maximize impact. In terms of letter writing, do make sure to keep it brief. Although writing shorter pieces is sometimes more difficult than lengthier pieces, it's really where you're going to make readers pay attention is if you do keep it to 250 words or less. Ensure that it's timely and newsworthy. Is there new recycling policy happening in your community that you can tie your shoreline cleanup to? Include that in your letter, really maximize its relevancy. And when writing to a news outlet, make sure to address your letter, dear editor. That way they know you're just not writing to share your perspective, but that you do want your piece published. Speak from the heart. Sharing your personal experiences is one way to be really persuasive, but it's also just really engaging. We're all human and we all want to learn from one another. And do make sure to provide your contact number. The last thing that I'll finish with is do make sure to check out the brand new toolkit that we've created for the shoreline cleanup. We've compiled a bunch of helpful content templates and resources that make it as easy as possible for you to storytell and to share your cleanup, and of course, encourage others to act. So I'll wrap there and pass it back to Laura. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Tessa. Well, now has come the time for your questions, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully that's been a lot of interesting and stimulating information for you. Hopefully there's some new as well as some information that you're already familiar with. But I'd love to hear from you. Please pop your questions in the chat. And we also had a couple of questions in advance. So I will give it a moment whilst we wait for your questions to come through. And if I am not quick enough, by all means, please wave at me. But some of the questions that we had were, can we get support to mobilize the community? That I thought was a really great question. Absolutely. This is why we're here in front of you today. We would love to hear from you and to give you that support and to help you amplify that message. So please, please, please do not be shy. Please use the contact details that we will share again after this webinar. Reach out to the Shoreline Cleanup team and let us know. We are here. We would love to help tell your story. The other question that we've got in advance was, what is more important during a cleanup? So this is a really interesting one. What do we think, Amber? What is most important to you during a cleanup?
I have a couple of things. So some of the key things that are important besides like cleaning the litter, some of the obvious things, is one thing that we get on our soapbox about is data submission, data submission, data submission. That's why I made it so clear in the presentation, hopefully. But what I'm going to take like a little bit of a different approach. And I think that the most important part of a cleanup, or something that's the most important thing to remember or get out of it is the experience itself and your ability to learn from that experience and take that learning and apply it further, go beyond the cleanup into making those actions that you were suggesting earlier, Laura, with reducing your plastic impact. So seeing it on the shoreline, seeing the impact quite tangibly and physically, and then applying that to your own practices and your own behavior.
I love that response, and I confess I am on exactly the same page. One shoreline cleanup is great, and we are always going to say thank you for that, and we are always going to do our best to maximize how we use that data because it is so powerful. But your personal impact, how you then use that information, how you bring your community with you, how you have these conversations with your colleagues, with your friends in your communities, that is super powerful as well. I'm going to pick off a couple of the quick questions that I can see that have been coming through here as well. So yes, there is a digital version of the cleanup data card. We can send you a link to that. Now, as Amber said in her presentation, that on the day of your cleanup, you will also get that link emailed to you. So yes, absolutely a digital version, and we would very much encourage you to use it because it does make your life a little bit simpler at the end of the cleanup. Are the slides from the presentation available? Yes, we have been recording today's session, so you will be able to see the graphs. And if you have any questions, again, please use and abuse the email address that we have shared. We would love to chat to you some more. There is a question for Lasse about the debate on turning water bottles into clothing and hats, and what your personal position is on that, sir.
That's hilarious. I'm a woolen guy. Most of my clothes are made of natural fibers, and even though I am a bald guy and probably should be wearing hats on a regular basis, I don't. I do have hats. They're made of wool. So for me, my personal choice is going wool, and I do have some plastic or oil-based jackets, because when you go sailing, you go climbing, you go hiking, especially here in Canada, you need to protect yourself from the environment. But I also do have a very old Swedish-made windbreaker, which is cotton and wax. So I'm trying to stick to as natural materials as possible. If that's the best in all cases for all people, I wouldn't be able to have a strong opinion on that, but that's my choice.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. We had a question about photograph and consent for things like videos. So yes, when you register your cleanup and you set it up online, there is both a waiver and a content agreement that we can ask you to sign, and you can ask your participants to sign. Advice would also be to print out a spare on the day. And if any folks aren't comfortable with having their photograph taken or their videos being shared, then what we do when we host public cleanups is we invite those folks to identify themselves, and then we ask them very nicely not to participate in every group photo, so that we do have some that we can use. But that's a really great question. Thank you. I've got some other great questions coming through here that I can see. There's a question about municipality recycling. This is a really great question for which I have a very long answer. So I will try and be brief, but the claims around recycling are very challenging, particularly here in Canada, but also elsewhere in North America and around the world. Just because you as an individual might wash or recycle your personal wash and clean and then properly segregate your material does not mean that everybody does. And unfortunately, when you have different materials, particularly PVCs and anything that could affect the material type, that means that that material is then devalued and downgraded. So it really does depend on what is quite a complex process between you washing and cleaning and putting your items in a recycling bin, all the way through to that material actually being recycled in principle. And I can see some pieces around the extended producer responsibility program in BC, which is great. And extended producer responsibility programs are positively recommended. But again, getting that data back is all important. If what we struggle and what the industry struggles with is to ensure that that material is in the best possible condition to then be sold onto the market for new materials. And one of the other challenges that recyclers face, even with extended producer responsibility, beyond sorting and beyond contamination, is also the challenge that that recycled material is more expensive once it's been through all those processes, once they've invested all that time to then put back out onto the market. Virgin plastic is still cheaper, which is where you get, to Kate's question, apparel brands being able to buy at a higher price the recycled material, as opposed to it going bottle to bottle. So completely agree with whoever said reuse is always best. Am I missing any questions from anybody? I'm scrolling wildly, and forgive me if I'm doing a terrible job there. Otherwise, I think I'm being warned that we're at time. So if you will indulge me, I would love to say thank you very much to you once again. It's been an absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you today. If you have any more questions, as I've said, this will be recorded, it will be shared, we will be able to find the link. Please also do use the email address for the Shoreline cleanup team, and you will be able to speak to myself, Amber, and our colleagues. We very much look forward to seeing all that you're going to do over the course of the next week and later on into the summer. If you are hosting events or joining events this week, please let us know. We would love to hear more. And very last but not least, we wouldn't be able to be with you today without some of the support from our lovely sponsors. So I will say a big thank you to Loblaws, who are our presenting sponsors here in Canada, Corona and O'Neill, and last but not least, Wheaton, who is our provincial sponsor here in BC. And for folks who are joining us outside, please don't forget that we have a US shoreline cleanup, and we would love to hear from you too. And that US shoreline cleanup is sponsored by the very wonderful True Earth. So if there is anything else that you need from us, please don't be shy. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing all your pictures, and I will sign off today. Thank you very much. Take care.